Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Executive Table Talk. I'm JT O'Donnell, the founder and CEO of Work It Daily and the host of today's show. And we are going to be talking to an exclusive group of executives about how to create a healthy work environment. You know, I chose this topic because now that we are coming back into the office, a lot of companies are making people go hybrid and in some cases fully back to the office. We're thinking about work environment more and more. So whether you are remote and you want to make sure that you're maintaining a healthy work environment or you're going back in, what can we be doing, right? Because studies show there's a lot of burnout out there, a lot of stress, and your environment is going to either help you feel better or can just add to more of your stress. So I think it's a really worthy topic, and I can't wait to see what these executives have to say about it. So let's bring them up. Hello, execs. How y'all doing today? Good?
Good.
Sweet. So, Mark, I'm going to pick on you first. I'm going to talk about it. Did you take this idea from the perspective of in-office or home office? And what are your thoughts on the subject?
You know what, JT, that's a really good question to start off with. So I was thinking in office. Maybe I'm a little bit old school, but I've always liked being in the office.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that kind of face-to-face communication. You'll know from doing previous ones of these. I was going to call them tricks. I'm not quite sure what they are, right? But the ways to oil the wheels by actually going and seeing people. Mm-hmm. So I guess just in general, when I looked at the question, so how to create a healthy work environment, to me it was almost, I wasn't quite sure what healthy meant, and I maybe kind of twisted the question a little bit to say is, you know, how do you create a work environment where tasks get done from a business perspective, right? And I think, as we all know, you know, regardless of how well run a company is, doing business on a day-to-day basis can be quite chaotic. And how do you blend that with, you know, giving the workers the opportunities to grow, right? And that those growth opportunities are almost certainly, you know, different for everybody, right? So for some it might be to do something new, it might be a promotion, it might be more money, it might well be just to kind of stay put and do the same thing. We know that never happens, right? Because other things move forward. So, you know, how do you kind of blend those two things together? Because at one level, they do seem somewhat mutually exclusive, or they could be, right? So here's business, and I just need to get the business done. I just need to get the work done. And here's a person, and they understand that they're there to get the work done, but they want to get something more out of it as well. And I think that pivot point, in the notes that I put together, I said it was the manager, but after I thought a little bit more about that, and it's both the employee and the manager, right? That's the point where you bring the business together with what the employee wants. And you know, I think we've all been, maybe you've all had the experience. You've worked at a lousy company, but the boss has been fantastic, right? And you've probably grown within that organization, despite the overall company not being perfect. And likewise, you might have had the opportunity to work for a really good company, but you've just happened upon, you know, somebody that you report to that for whatever reason you don't quite get along with, and you know that you might not consider that environment to be healthy, right? So I do think it's that kind of pivot point between, again, the employer and the manager, and a couple of things that I've seen to kind of blend that together is this idea of, and I think it possibly comes from the manager, but it can come from the employee doing this to themselves as well, which is to remind themselves as to what the firm, the company, the business is actually there to do. And then for, you know, so here's I'm working in this business, this is what this business is here to do, and then remind themselves as to like kind of what that, you know, kind of what that means for them, right? And how that resonates with their values. So I'll give you an example, right? So one of my previous roles, if projects weren't going particularly well, then they would often appear on my desk to, you know, shake the tree and you know, make sure things got done and dates were hit, etc. So one of the things that came to my desk was we were looking to do small business lending. So to introduce a small business lending application, because the bank wanted to do more small business lending. So to be honest, I was like, why the heck has this come to me, right? I've never done small business before, I'm not really sure what that means. And I asked for more clarification, and, you know, I got a deck. And again, if anybody's been on these calls, it was a big deck. It had pages and pages of reasons as to why we should be doing this business. So on a logical level, it made more sense. But at the same time, I'm still sat there thinking, why the heck is it down to me to kind of get this thing back on its feet? So where am I going with this? So that's in place. I'm then out on the street. We've got a big dog here. He likes his treats, and we saw across the street that there was this one of these vans that sells food. There was one of those across the street, and it sold treats for dogs. So we took the dog over to the van, and the guy that was running it was great. Really talkative. He remembered the dog's name, which was great. And whatever he got was fantastic, right? And it was good to talk to the gentleman. And then as we were walking away, with the feeding the dog, etc. The person that I was with, they said, well, you do realize that I was talking to him a long time ago, and he was a veteran. He had suffered from PTSD. He'd worked with dogs in the army. To turn his life around, he'd actually felt that he had to give something back to dogs and pets in general, and he started that business. And in my head, I go, boom, never realized it before. That's what a small business looks like. And it's these people potentially, right, that are picking themselves up and want to better themselves and better their life and better their family. And the reason that I need to get my backside in gear to ensure that this small business lending tool that we bought works appropriately, right, is to facilitate people like that, to turn their lives around and get things going. And I think once that kind of connection happens, the why, I guess, the real why, then regardless of where you're working, I think the work that you're doing is in a really healthy bubble. So that's what resonated for me when I saw the question.
I love it. You went in a totally different direction, and I'm guessing that some of my other executives will be as well, but you're spot on. Like, when defining healthy in the sense of the ecosystem of the work fits with who you are, that you connect with it so that you feel that state of flow and positivity, and you're going to do better work when you feel aligned like that. So I think that's amazing. Let's bounce over to you, Michael. Your background's in the NFL, finance, operations, budgeting. You know the drill. So what do you think when you heard that term, healthy work environment? What did you think of?
In my terms, in creating a healthy work environment, I can't ignore what the NFL represents to me, my passion for the Shield. Working at the NFL, there were many stadium shots, action photos, and standout players and coaches and teams, and different paraphernalia that was on the walls and all on different tabletops and all that. So I'm going to start with the physical space. I believe an attractive office design can make employees intrinsically happier. A theme-based workspace where employees are proud of where they work, they have well-being and promote healthy habits. You're investing in office space as an enjoyable place to spend time, for employees to spend time. Also, an investment in ergonomic chairs, stand-up desktops, extra monitors to create a more relaxed and functional workspace. Also, you're encouraging office-friendly supply chains so people can, where employees can replenish supplies and computer equipment and arrange their equipment the way they want. Also, sitting closely together. A lot of times employees want to sit with departments, sit close so they can collaborate and be part of it, feel like they're part of a team. And lastly, on the physical space is creating an environment where sunlight flows into the office space. It makes creativity and awareness, and adding theme-based artwork can maximize productivity and boost morale. The second thing is the wellness space. Feedback and communication, to me, is the most valuable gifts an employer can give its employees. Providing a space where employees have a voice, can voice their opinions, issues, and judgment without criticism, an open engagement platform. Showing appreciation is another way to create a healthy work environment. Showing appreciation for your employees, individual or entire departments, making employees feel valuable and appreciated. Valued and appreciated. Also, an environment where there's psychological safety, they feel safe, where they feel comfortable being themselves and feel free to exist without fear of embarrassment or retaliation. Another point is prioritize cultural alignment. So when during the hiring process, it's a good idea maybe for the person, the hiring manager, to kind of vent out potential new hires with an excellent opportunity to feel an excellent opportunity for them to. Do they fit into the work culture? Do they fit in this new hire? Will they fit into the culture of what we're trying to establish here? That to me is very, very important. And lastly, empower your team with what they need to thrive. Be inclusive, be appreciative, and communicate. That's huge for me. Thank you.
Love it. I love that you went through the physical, and emotional well-being. In fact, I just want to point out while you were talking, Michael, Farad, one of our members that's watching today, said, healthy environment needs healthy personnel too, my dear friends. Please think about them. I think that, that's exactly what you're getting at, right?
True,
that
yes.
You want people to be healthy when they pull, they're in there, and such great ways to do it for sure. All right, bouncing up to you, Lisa. You know a thing or two about healthy work environments, and I'm sure you've been in some that have not been so healthy, right? I'm sure you've learned from that. So share with us your ideas on this.
Well, first of all, what great perspectives from Mark and the why to Michael and the environment. So let me give you another different perspective here. First, 51% of employees have experienced a toxic work environment, and 1 in 5 Americans have left a job due to a bad company culture. Personally, as a brand marketer, I've worked in a number of company organizations that have been toxic, and I've been able to transform my work environment. So here are some things that have worked for me. If you're faced in a situation that's not healthy and you want to transform that into a healthy work environment, first, you need to cultivate a positive company culture. And that includes communication, collaboration, and respect. And the key word is respect. In the company, the 2 companies out of a number of them that I've worked in where there was a toxic work environment, marketing wasn't respected. And let me give you an example. In one, I came in and I got a number of examples where cross-departmental folks would tell me that they would reach out and they would call the head of marketing and call them in the hallway, and they would ignore the cross-functional folks, straight out ignore them. And that's just a lack of disrespect between other organizations and marketing. In another organization, marketing didn't have a seat at the table in order to drive key business results within the organization. And when you have that lack of respect with a key department in the organization, you're not going to get business results. So how do you gain respect in an organization? Well, you have to sit down and listen. You have to listen to what their issues are and how you can help solve them. It may not even be within your roles and responsibilities, but at this point, you've got to work with them and collaborate with them. So what is it that they need and they want, and how can you show up and work and problem solve in order to turn around that respect? The second thing is effective communication. The first I talked about is communication. Now you've got to implement effective communication. And that in a healthy organization, people need to feel free to express their ideas, connect with other people to be heard, and to be heard when they disagree with you. When I've worked in toxic organizations and I've had people work for me, they don't feel free to disagree with me. They are just going to say, yes, what do you want? Because they have been beat down and put into a box. So I've got to work really hard to encourage them to express their ideas and disagree with me. And that's a journey. That's a journey because I am passionate and I want to share my ideas. So when I'm disagreeing, I have to push through and say, share your ideas. I want to hear it. Even though I don't agree with you, you need to share your ideas right now. I want to hear from you. And that takes time saying it over and over again until they break through and they know that there's no retribution. And that also involves cross-functional people in my marketing department doing the same thing until they know there's not going to be any retribution. And then the floodgates open and they know that they feel free to share, because that's when the creativity and the innovation starts to happen. And then cross-functionally, you need to create effective communication where you're collaborating and you're brainstorming and you're creating those opportunities to share ideas. I'll give you another example. I worked in an organization where in some organizations, marketing and PR are one, but in other organizations, they're not. But they're siblings. They fall under the same house. But I created an opportunity where we had brainstorming and we had breakout sessions. And the head of PR came to me afterwards and they said, this was amazing. I got to talk with somebody in marketing, a copywriter, and I hadn't connected with them ever. And she'd been there for 15 years. You can't have that in an organization. You have to create opportunities where you are encouraging people to work together, to share ideas, and drive the business forward. And the last thing I will tell you is you need to lead by example. You do not have to have a title. It doesn't have to be CEO, and you don't have to have people reporting to you. I've been in organizations where I didn't have people reporting to me and I didn't have a title, but I influenced. So how do you influence? You are positive. You have a can-do attitude. You can come up with ideas and problem solve. You're a servant leader. That doesn't mean you don't have boundaries and guidelines. You don't have a work-life balance. You do. You have all of those things, but you can get things done and you have that positivity because then people want to work with you. They want you on projects. They are the person that you go to. You are leading by example. And I'll just summarize it by this. A healthy work environment is essential to your well-being, your job satisfaction, and it drives that productivity. It reduces turnover and it drives overall business success.
Yeah, I love it. Lisa, I just want to say while you were chatting, Sylvia, who's listening in, said shocking information, the stats that you gave, right? Respect is so much and such a big part of it. And Micah also agrees and says 100% on the employees having a voice. And I love how you talked about breaking through and giving the example of getting people to a psychologically safe place where they can share their ideas. You know, when you've inherited a toxic work environment, it is a lot of work to get people to that safe space. So I love that you shared all of that because, you know, it's amazing how many companies out there with all of the research, with all of the information, that they're still creating toxic work environments. And we even see it in big companies where one department can be amazing, but another department can be toxic, right? It's not always an all or nothing situation. So I love what everybody's sharing today. And that leads us to our newest executive joining us here today. Hello, Debbie. So Debbie, you come from an IT background, and I'll be curious to see what your take was on this question and the advice that you want to share today.
Hi, JT, and thank you. When I looked at the question, I kind of took a similar approach to what Lisa said, but slightly different, because when I looked at it, it said, to me, it seems like a lot of people are on a quest to find that elusive company that has that great culture and that's the right fit for them. And I think when you have a company culture that appeals to employees, you'll have a great, healthy work environment. And I'll take it even one step further and say that that company is probably very employee focused, that organization realizes that its most important resource is its employees and that its employees are at the core of everything they do. That company will focus on investing and encouraging employees to have a growth mindset. They'll provide the employees with tools and resources they need to continually learn and grow. They'll offer opportunities for employees to keep current, get a promotion, or move into a managerial role. Or maybe the employee wants to improve their time management or their public speaking skills. A healthy work environment will support these types of personal development learnings. And then to the difference between a great and an exceptional company is when they go to that next level to support personal learnings beyond work related. This includes things like helping employees enhance their quality of life with maybe a fitness routine, developing a reading habit, or getting a degree in something not related to their job. There's a saying by Confucius, I want you to be everything that's you, deep at the center of your being. So encourage employees to be the very best version of themselves. As a leader, Have you asked what's important to your employees? Because if it's important to them, then it should be important to you too. Personal development is lifelong learning, and it should include both professional and personal learnings. Because if you do, employees will feel value and are more likely to be and stay excited about what's next. And then they'll potentially stay longer with the organization because of that culture and work environment.
Oh my gosh, I absolutely love that. I love that you talked about a great company and then an exceptional company, and that the difference is they're looking at that other aspects of that individual, their personal aspects. You know, I've seen a lot of in the pandemic companies questioning whether or not their benefits apply anymore, right? Like the perks and benefits they used to give people, they've obviously pulled a lot back because they don't apply, especially in office benefits if everyone's remote. But have they gone back to the drawing board, as you're suggesting, Debbie, and said, what would our people need now? How do they stay now? Because we are seeing a massive turnover issue go on right now. And I think some of it is people have just been through so much, they want a change of scenery. They just think going someplace new is going to make them feel better. But I also think it's because the companies haven't done a refresh approach to getting to that exceptional level like you've talked about here today, which I love. Absolutely fantastic. Executives, great job. I know we've got a few minutes left. I want to see if people have any questions. Folks that are listening in today, if you have a question, put the word question in front of it so we can tell, and then the team can answer it for you. And we do have one here from Micah to start. Micah asks, how do you suggest to maintain a healthy environment without it crossing the line of the family atmosphere? How does that fine line get maintained? So I'm laughing because Micah, I did a TikTok about this recently about one of the most toxic word in job descriptions these days is considered the word family. We're like a family. A lot of people do not have gone very negative with that connotation. And so I think Micah's making a great point. You know, how do you do that, but not get to that place and maybe scare them away? I don't know. Do any of you have any ideas or thoughts that they want to share?
I think I'll jump in. I think you've got to have guidelines set up, you know, about what's professional, what's not professional, and that's really important in terms of protocol of where you cross the line and where you don't. You want to make sure that you're collaborating and you're creating that empathy and that support across the organization. But without guidelines, that does cross the line of family, and that's where that would be important to have those set up.
Yeah. Yeah, it is hard because if you do a really good job of getting people to feel connected and getting to know each other and building like friendships in work, which we all know is so important to get along with who you work with, it can be very easy to say something that maybe is a bit too personal, right? You know, it's really tough to decide these days because we do care. You end up caring about your coworkers, but you have to figure out what those boundaries are. It's not always easy to navigate. I think it's a good question, Mike. I'm not sure it's one that we can easily answer. So it's great. And I just want to say, Eugenia posted something that said, I feel like we often tell employees to speak up when they disagree, but are not really ready to hear it. And then there's a lot of subtle retribution after that. So she's really glad that you touched on that topic, Lisa. Again, so much today has been into this idea of healthy environment being not just, is it a right fit for me, but am I safe to speak here? You know, that psychological safety factor seems to be coming more and more and more. And you got to ask yourself why. Like, why is that suddenly? Is it suddenly just, you know, something we're recognizing, or is there a bigger issue going on here? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and some people aren't willing to do it, right? You have to have the person that's willing to hear and be open to getting information that doesn't agree with your point of view. And quite honestly, it's a beautiful thing when you don't always agree, because you can then figure it out and dialogue and get to a place that is much better. But you have to have that emotional intelligence and maturity in an organization to do that. And that sometimes is lacking.
Yeah, great point. Michael, I think you were going to comment.
Yes, I wanted to say that, you know, some people don't speak out because they feel like they'll be labeled as a troublemaker or someone that's always complaining about something. And sometimes, when you do speak out, you're not supported by the team. Let's say if something is not quite right and you speak out about it and you're waiting for support from everyone else and everyone just, it's crickets. No one says anything. So I think that's why some people just don't speak out. They just stay quiet.
No, it's a great point. It's a great point. Those dynamics are tough. Mark, you're nodding. What's going on in your head over there?
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of things, JT, that maybe address the family piece and also the speaking up piece. So again, the first thing in my head, it's called work, right? It's not called a vacation, right? And work's all about getting things done. So from a speaking up perspective, my mindset for the longest time has always been, I'm just here to be effective, right? I'm not here to be right. I'm just here to be effective. So if the most junior person that's in a meeting comes up with the most efficient, effective way of doing things, I'm going with that, right? So I think I think it's a number of things. It's a function of actually who you are, again, who you're part of, the group that you're part of. And that might be good in a bad place or bad in a good place. And therefore you've got to be a little bit mindful of kind of who you're talking to and what their mindset is. The other thing I'd say about that as well is if it's constructive, I think it would land well. Again, you got to be careful, right? Kind of don't outshine the boss. But if it's just, in the cold light of day, if it's just a complaint about something, then nobody needs to hear that, right? So I think there's a mindfulness about what you're sharing, and also try to see it with take a step back. Is this something that's important to me, but in that bigger picture might come across as being something that's not positive, that doesn't move things forward. And then similarly around the family piece as well, it's a healthy dynamic, right? It's people want to grow. I mean, we talked about it. What does that mean for people? But part of that is doing new things, I think, and that sense of, I don't know, fulfillment you get for, here's something that I was given to do. I'd never done it before, and it was due on a certain date, and I hit that date, and the feedback that I got was really good, and I hit the date. So I've done something that just intrinsically makes me feel good. And that, to me, ultimately is work, right? And I think you can have positive conversations and partnerships or whatever it would be around that, but that's not family, right? I don't hold any of my family members, right? Up to, you need to get this done by this time, and if you've got a problem, come back and talk to me about it, and we work out how we do it. That's just not the dynamic,
right?
So
I love it, and I think I think we're clearly going to have another session on this. I love that out of today's session, there's clearly a theme around dealing with retributive cultures, helping set the boundaries around what's family. It's interesting when people hear family now, what they hear is, so you're going to be disrespectful to me, abuse my time and energy because you assume I'm family, right? And I love that you commented on that, Mark. So clearly out of this session, and thank you to all of our folks listening in today. I think you've identified a topic that we're going to need to do in June. I'd love to hear from all of our listeners today. What was your big aha moment? What did you take away from today's session? I also want you to take a moment right now to jot the names down of these incredible executives. They are all here on LinkedIn. They are all sharing incredible knowledge. I remind you of that all the time. So you can go find them and follow them. And you can even be so bold as to send them a custom invite and ask them to connect with you. But if you do that, we have to have an agreement that you're going to message them that you saw them on Executive Table Talk, powered by Work It Daily. You got to let them know where you saw them, okay? So they can accept that connection request. As always, executives, amazing insights. I love that everyone had a little bit different take on this. And I expect all of you to come back for that follow-up session that we figured out today for sure, okay? Does that sound good? Awesome. All right, folks, until next time, remember, if you want to win, you got to work it daily. So come on back and see us soon on our next Executive Table Talk. Take care. Bye-bye.